mess it up.
Okay. This is Cup of Go for May 8, 2023. Keep up to date with the important happenings in the Go community in about 50 minutes per week. I am your co-host, Jonathan Hall.
And I'm your co-host, Shai Nechmad.
Good morning, Shai. What are you drinking this morning?
Cold coffee and one at that.
Oh, no.
I apologize. It's probably, the first minute of the podcast. We probably have to bleep that out just in case someone has, with their kid in the car or whatever. But I'll rant for a second about coffee because this is a coffee show primarily.
Right, yeah.
I have my best friend is marrying his beautiful fiancée soon. I love them both. We went shopping together to get some groceries. And I picked up coffee, milk for coffee. No, I don't drink dairy milk. I drink oat-based stuff.
Okay.
And she was like, "No, didn't you read behind the package? It has oil and preservatives, and you can't drink it. It's so unhealthy, blah, blah, blah." I was like, "All right, but I want milk." So she gave me this organic, I don't know, it's worse than water. I don't know.
Not good stuff, huh?
Only the addiction to caffeine is causing me to drink this instead of pouring it down the drain. The fact that I need to pay for the pipe.
So that's a sad story.
I'm unhappy about my coffee. So how about we boost up the morale a little bit with what's been happening with Go this week? Because we have a ton to talk about.
We do.
So I'll kick us off here. We have 2 minor releases, security fixes. If you remember, we mentioned them last week. 1.20.4 and 1.19.9. Now, usually, John, when we update on these releases, we go like, these are security fixes. Remember to update. And there the story ends. This week, we sort of dug into the fixes themselves. What were the vulnerabilities? Last week, we didn't know because they were private. And we dug a little deeper this week, and we saw that someone, and I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, called Juho Nurminen, reported all 3 vulnerabilities. Looking through their body of work in HackerOne and in the Mattermost blog, it seems like this person has been working on Go standard library security issues since 2020 and maybe even before, and found some vulnerabilities in GitHub Actions, found some vulnerabilities in Go's encoding XML, and the 3 vulnerabilities reported on these releases. So thanks a ton for your work, Juho.
That's kind of it for official releases, but we have some other interesting news. In less than a month, or in one case, in a month and a day, we have 2 conferences coming up on the opposite sides of the world. So if you are in Japan, or if you're online, you can attend Go Conference 2023 on June 2nd. Now, I'm looking at the website. I'm trying to see if it's in Japanese or in English. The website is in both languages, so I think it's mostly in Japanese, but there may be some English language talks. Certainly, if you speak Japanese, this is a great conference for you to attend. And even if you don't, maybe some of the talks will be valuable. That's on June 2nd. On June 9, if you're in New York City, you might be interested in the Gotham Go conference. Tickets are available, and they're quite affordable. It looks like the most expensive ticket is $300, and that includes a Kubernetes workshop. You can't do better than that, folks.
If you're in a company or some organization offering to the accounting department or your manager or whatever, hey, there's a conference that's relevant to my job. Let me go, pay for my ticket, and let me grab a few colleagues on the way. It's one of those things that people feel is not okay. But it's exactly the opposite. Managers love it. It's a great way to use the L&D budget in the company. It helps build the team. It's gonna make you look better as an employee as well. So don't be shy about just telling your boss or accounting department to expense these tickets. And if they don't, you can send them to us.
Yeah, we'll do the SmackDown.
So we'll do the SmackDown. Scary from a couple of programmers in a podcast.
Right. I mean, we talk big on the internet. You get us in person, we're pretty timid, but online, man, you don't want to make us angry.
I didn't meet you in person yet. I never saw you even standing up. You see me standing up, so you have a vague idea of how tall I am, but I don't know. I have no idea.
We'll have to fix that one of these days.
All right. So last week we didn't have proposal minutes. This week we do. We want to highlight 3 discussions. The first one sort of shows the Go's team approach to the standard library. There was a proposal to add a package called testing/CMP, which has a bunch of functionality borrowed from Google's Go CMP package, adding it to the standard library. there are a few ways to compare stuff in Go. You can use equals equals operator. You can use reflect to deep equal. I know that for testing, I 100% go to deep dot equal, which also has human readable output for the error, which is nice. DSNet proposed to take the Go CMP library and include it in the standard library. Showed some numbers to how many people use reflect dot deep equal and try to push his case, and people liked it. He got almost 100 upvotes, but in the end, Russ moved it to likely decline, and the reasoning behind it makes a lot of sense, and it's very Go-ish in nature, right? Because it wasn't like I don't want to bring this package because it doesn't work or because it doesn't make sense or it doesn't fit in the standard library. It's just a matter of simplicity, which I really, really appreciate. Russ goes with the package is slightly more complex. We need to significantly trim it down, and there may well be some form of Go CMP that should become testing/CMP, but not an unmodified version of the package right now because it is slightly complicated.
Also, we have a great proposal that I just think is the best proposal to have.
I don't know how you're going to do it in audio form. I trust you, but I don't know how you're going to do it in audio form.
Well, I'll do my best. So, this proposal, I suppose I should give some background. This comes straight from Russ Cox, so it's important. And he points to the new language called Mojo, which was announced this last week. He says the new, currently still closed source program language called Mojo uses the file extension .mojo, M-O-J-O, but it allows as an alternative the .fire emoji file extension. Then Russ continues, clearly Go is being left behind in the Unicode race. We must not let this stand. I propose that we throw caution to the wind and standardize on the, I don't know how to do this, a whole bunch of Unicode characters that look like a gopher as an alternate spelling of .go, as in hello.gopher. So you just have to read the proposal to get the full gist of the genius that is behind this proposal, because it's not easy to verbalize. But it's an amazing proposal. It's had almost 500 upvotes so far. I won't tell you how many downvotes because they don't matter, because only the upvotes are important on this proposal. Unfortunately, Russ withdrew this proposal a day after he made it. I'm hoping that with the support of our listeners, we can get this proposal reopened and eventually accepted, because this is just brilliant.
I think that if Russ is going to keep it closed, we have to fork.
Yes.
This is go-to. This is
I actually went to register the Punycode version of go.dev with that little gopher thing in it. I think as a community we should come together. Maybe with the proceeds from our merch we can do that as a podcast.
And by the way, I don't understand what's the problem of reading out the extension. It just goes like, let's say you have hello.go and then hello_test.go. Now it will be a hello.voiced pharyngeal approximate or fricative. Unicode character U+25D4 circle with upper right quadrant black and lowercase pi. So simple.
Awesome. Yeah.
I have to give huge props to Mojo for this play of allowing fire emoji in the file names. It's just, I wouldn't have heard about it if that didn't happen.
I think it's probably fair to say it's a publicity stunt, and it worked.
Yeah, 100%. And it's legit. It's by the person who wrote Swift. It's not like some hobby language. So yeah. I'm excited to see what happens with it. But unfortunately, this proposal rose and fell.
Yeah, it won't see the light of day. But it's a great proposal.
There's a discussion ongoing on ordered min-max that's still running, right? We updated it on the past.
Yeah, we talked about this, I don't remember, 2 or 3 weeks ago. At the time, the proposal was to add a min function and a max function and an ordered type to the sort package. The proposal has been updated to call that package, rather than putting it in sort, making a new package called CMP, which is unrelated to the previous proposal you just talked about for testing/CMP, although they're both related to comparison. But it's the same basic proposal we discussed previously, just putting it in a different package now.
Why would you rather have it in CMP? What's the reasoning behind this proposal?
The reasoning behind this proposal comes essentially from Rob Pike. Basically, he has the view that these functions, min and max, aren't really sorting. They're more doing comparisons, and that it's easy and intuitive to separate these into a separate package anyway. so we probably should.
I think that one of the comments I like about this proposal is that non-test packages should get the good names like CMP. It's like unfair that Go CMP got CMP and then the real quote-unquote packages. I think that's a really bad view because testing is the hero of the code base, not the actual code.
Right.
The actual code is the easy part. All right, so many proposals and also conferences and also releases. So I think the urgent part of the news is over. There's a ton of stuff around the community, though. A lot of very cool releases, cool projects coming up. So we're not going to go deep into every single post. And the first one we want to mention is something sent to us by a longtime listener, Tom Toledo, which is you called him by name, Jonathan, and it's not his name. His name is Tom Toledo.
Toledo.
Okay. Yeah, but since then, everybody at the office has been calling him Tom Toledo. You just effectively changed his name.
Sorry, Tom.
In my previous company, we did a lot of template rendering. And there's a really great blog post. It's called Template Rendering in Go, a Software Optimization Tale. At the very minimum, I think that the approach to this blog post, it's just really, really, really good. Talking about that premature optimization is not always the worst thing to do, and including an example with fully executable code that you can run, using a ton of Go tools to show the benchmarks, using pprof and whatever. It's a really good intro into this world of profiling the part of your app that you know is the bottleneck right now, talking about how to measure the max heap size and working on the hardware, which I really, really liked. When I talk to developers today, a lot of the time they're so abstracted away from the machine that they're running on that it seems like, how much memory will my application need? Like, doesn't matter. We can scale. It's cloud, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when you used to get software in the back of the package, it would tell you you need such and such memory, such and such graphic card? I think that we should start forcing each developer to add that to their Go package as well. Recommended specs.
Yeah.
This post goes into, instead of starting from the software and let's just optimize blindly, find a red spot and improve it, let's start from the hardware. Given the hardware that I have to run my software on, what is the fastest possible way to get the job done? And then optimize towards that and not ad infinitum, which I really like. And thanks, Tom Toledo, for pointing it out.
Next, we have a project called Gokiburi. I think I said that right. Maybe I'm mispronouncing it and it will become the new standard way to pronounce it. I don't know. And it reminds me...
You're a torchbearer.
Yeah.
Just in the wrong direction, but still.
It's a test runner of sorts for Go. Basically, it's a file watcher and a web interface for all your tests. It reminds me a lot of an older project called Go Convey. I don't know how that's pronounced either.
It's not important for an audio show to pronounce words.
Yeah, I just type these things, and I don't need to speak properly. But so if your IDE doesn't have the integrations you want, or maybe you want to run tests so I use VS Code usually when I'm writing Go, and I have it run tests on save, but it runs the tests in the same package of the file I just saved. Maybe you need to run tests broader than that in some way. So that would be a place where a tool like this comes in play. Or maybe you're using a different editor. Maybe you're using something that doesn't integrate with a test runner. I don't know what that might be. I think most people these days are either using Vim or VS Code or Goland, but I'm sure there are people using Emacs, of course, which integrates with everything and the kitchen sink. But if you're using an editor that doesn't have this capability,
other people, of course,
right. So maybe you have a reason to do this, or maybe you want capabilities that your IDE just doesn't give you easily. So that would be something to check out. Gokiburi, Gokiburi. And that was just released 17 hours ago. So you heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, it's the first GitHub project from Michael Henriksen working at GitLab. And it looks good. So it's below 100 stars. So if you want to get on the star train right now.
It's too bad we don't have NFTs for those stars. So you could be like, I have star number 1.
That
was a joke, by the way. I'm not an NFT guy.
Honestly, I'm not even going to respect that offer. That proposal, I have more respect for the emoji proposal than what you just proposed. All right. So another thing I saw on Reddit, Zach Prozer posted a blog post called Bubble Tea State Machine. I love charm bracelet stuff, bubble tea, gum, and all that CLI goodness. If you're unfamiliar, they have a bunch of projects like reading Markdown on command line and building just beautiful command line applications, which I think if you work at a relatively big R&D team is always useful, right? You have a bunch of scripts for I need to Terraform apply my changes to the cloud environment and then rebuild the documentation and then push and then whatever. You always end up with a bunch of these utility scripts, and learning how to do them with Charm Bracelet, with Bubble Tea, and etc. is a nice way to make them very friendly, make them look good, perhaps even make them more robust, and definitely more user-friendly if it's an interactive script. So there's a blog post called Bubble Tea State Machine where you go through how to build a script that has a bunch of stages. The stage can complete or error or reset, depends on what you want it to do. And it sort of goes how to build a list of stages. Basically a small workflow engine that integrates really well with Bubble Tea. So if you want to improve your scripts, you can go read this. In my discussion in Reddit, I also added that I'm just using Gum. This requires you to write some Go code. But honestly, if you're good enough in Bash scripting, Gum, which is their like command line programs that you can run directly from Bash, can give you like 95% of the functionality you need normally. So you don't have to reach out and build a Go application. You can just write a shell script, which honestly usually is a lot simpler. So rounding out this week's community efforts, even though we have 10 more stuff to talk about, but we want to stay within a normal time frame. Jonathan, did you ever do event-driven systems?
A little bit. I've done a few microservices that were event-driven, yeah.
Oh, this week microservices is the new curse word, right?
It is, yeah.
Because of the AWS blog post.
Yep.
We moved to a server rack and cut 90% of our costs. Now every single CTO, okay, we need to shift back from microservices to servers.
Let's do a complete rewrite tomorrow.
Yeah. Anyways, what were the problems that you faced when doing event-driven systems?
The biggest problems I faced were with debugging, and the observability was very difficult.
So observability and tracing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But also just the basics you have to implement, right? For example, what happens if you lose connection to the message queue? When I say message queue, I mean like Kafka, I mean like RabbitMQ, other programs like that.
You got to reconnect.
Right?
Yeah.
And at least what I've found is that every time I do MQs, I build a small library in my company, and I feel really good about it. But what was released that week that will deprive me of that pleasure going forward?
So that is where Bunify comes in. It's a great name, isn't it?
Yeah. And a great logo. Shout out to the logo designers for Bunify.
Yeah, it looks like a gopher, not a bunny. I don't know. It needs to be wearing like synthetic ears to be bunified. But hey, whatever. Who am I to complain about artwork? We just had AI generate ours.
But I like it.
It's cute. No doubt about that. Yes. So
what's Bunify about?
So Bunify, it's supposed to make this message queuing configuration much easier. It's kind of a wrapper around AMQP, and it does the automatic payload marshalling and unmarshalling for you, automatic reconnection, as you just mentioned, built-in event metadata handling, and it has minimal dependencies, which is, of course, sort of in line with the Go ethos of simple and not hiding magic. So that's great from a magic library like this.
And I think that the examples, with the dead letter queue just shows you that this is based on real life problems. Because every system I interacted with that had message queuing was like, all right, now we need to implement dead letter queuing. And obviously you keep it for the last release because you want to release first. And meanwhile, you lose data left and right.
Yeah.
This is a pretty new package. And it's definitely in early. It had a first release 2 weeks ago. 0.0.1. So I don't know if you want to build your entire production on it, but go report A+, coverage 90%, And I think, again, an early project that y'all can get into and perhaps introduce into your companies.
Mm-hmm.
And that wraps it up for this week. Stick around for the ad break for 2 very, very exciting updates and for our interview after the break. Welcome to our ad break. This is your chance to refill your drinks. Jonathan and I already did that. And also to hear about this week's sponsor, the Cup-A-Go store.
Woohoo!
Jonathan, how about you tell us a little more about this fine establishment?
Yeah, this is pretty exciting. So we have a wide selection of 3 things you can buy now from store.cupago.dev.
That is store.cupago.dev.
So we have a very stylish mug, of course, because what else could we possibly sell at our own store? It's pretty attractive. I'm going to be ordering my own copy very soon, and maybe next week you'll see me sipping. You won't see me. You'll hear me sipping from my cup of go. We also have stickers with transparent or white background, so be sure to buy all 2 so you have the full collection. And if you're really hip, you can get our new Cup-A-Go wireless charger.
I wish I could. I have a magnet on the back of my phone, so for me it's not going to work. But try it. It looks good.
I don't even know if my phone supports wireless charging. I'll have to check.
Just a quick note about the store. We're working with a third-party supplier, and they're going to take care of everything. So if there are any issues with your order, just talk to us and we'll talk to them. We don't have any stock. It's print on demand, so it might take a little bit to get to your door, but we promise it's worth it. It's very, very stylish. You could walk around the office with your Cup-A-Go.
Be the first on your block to have a Cup-A-Go mug.
100%. And it will support the show a little bit. So show your support. Buy some merch.
And if there's something else you want other than these 3 amazing options, let us know. I mean, it's print on demand. We can pretty easily put things in there, but we don't want to overwhelm you with too many choices. So we'll wait to hear from you if you want something else. If you want a T-shirt or boxer shorts or socks or I don't know,
pet bowl,
face paint. I don't know what the options are. We'll figure it out.
What other updates we have for the ad break?
So I think the only other thing that's really worth mentioning here is that we are looking for an editor to do the audio editing of our podcast. It's been mostly me. Shai's done 1 or 2 episodes as well.
The ones that sounded better.
Yeah.
That was me.
The crap ones are me and the good ones are Shai. But we're looking for we're looking to hire somebody to take over the editing of our podcast. If that sounds like you or someone you know, and you're in a European compatible time zone, because we record on Monday morning and we try to release by Monday afternoon, reach out to us. If that sounds like something you do or want to do, we'd love to talk with you.
And if you want to reach us, there are a few places you can do that for hiring jobs or otherwise. Cupago.dev is our site, and with store.cupago.dev to buy merch. Mm-hmm. We're also on the Gopher Slack, hashtag Cup of Go, kebab case with hyphens, which has been very active recently. A lot of interesting discussions going on there. And you can also email us at news@cupago.dev. That is news@cupago.dev. If you like the show, leave a review on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you catch your podcasts. Share it with a co-student or a co-league, or just with any random person on the street. Just shout at them. You have your cup, right? So you can wave your new mug at them with the Cup of Go logo and go say, "Oh, listen to it," splashing coffee all over the place. I think that's a good look.
You can't go wrong.
Yeah. And thanks a lot for listening. Coming up after the break, a super, super interesting interview. You want to stick around.
You do. We're going to be interviewing an author about a new Go book. We're not going to tell you the title until the interview.
Bam, bam, bam.
Stay tuned.
Hi, and welcome back. John, that's a nice book you have there.
Yeah, this is a great looking book. It's super sleek and shiny and sexy. It's got 300 and some pages in it. I hope that someday I'll get to talk to the author.
Oh, wait.
Oh, hi, Adelina. Welcome.
That was the best intro I've ever gotten.
And now cue 15-minute theme song.
Yes.
Okay. I'm doing the music, so I'm definitely not going to write a 15-minute theme song.
So I'm holding in my hand. Of course, nobody can see this except those of
I'll
us in
take
the
a
studio.
screenshot.
Okay, take
Yeah.
a screenshot. But
Got
I'm
it,
holding
got
a
it.
copy of Test-Driven Development in Go by Adelina Simion. I hope I said your name right this time, yes?
Yes.
Literally, this book arrived an hour ago. I went downstairs for lunch, and my wife said that the book was here. So I haven't really read it. I've skimmed the table of contents and a few pages. But this is going to be a surprise for me as much as Shai and all of the audience because I haven't read it yet. But before we talk about that, Adelina, would you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do as a profession, maybe any hobbies if you want to go that far?
Yeah, so hello everyone, virtually. So I'm Adelina, I live in London, and I've been a golfer since 2018. I have a background in Java before that, so a lot of things that, when I was transitioning from Java to Go, those like were the concerns and the niggles I ran into because it was my Java background. Right now I work for Form 3, which are a fintech in London, and I'm a tech evangelist. So I did my transition from a senior Go engineer to tech evangelist in 2021 at the end of 2021. And ever since then, I've been like really into content creation, and it's been just an amazing journey into like learning more about Go and then sharing that knowledge with people. So one of the things that I find really cool about content creation is that when you take the time to look at something and research it and put material together, then you really learn that topic in depth. Mm-hmm. So I first started out with a little bit of blogging, then I became a LinkedIn learning instructor, and I wrote a little bit about Go, and concurrency and testing was featured. And then I was approached to write this book, which is Test-Driven Development in Go, and it was just crazy to spend all of this time thinking about this, and it resulted in like a complete indexation of my knowledge and my thoughts on this. So I think that's the thing that I got most out of it, is like an absolute list of everything I knew, and now I can just access it.
Nice.
It's nice of you to share that list with the rest of humanity as well.
Oh, and I should mention one last thing. So I'm honored to serve the community as the Go community as a meetup organizer as well. Nice. So I'm a Women Who Go London organizer as well as a London Gophers co-organizer. So shout out to the local communities. Show some love to your local meetups.
Very cool.
And to Women Who Go as well. They have the best merch. Well, after today, it's the second best Go-related merch.
We just launched our merch store.
Yeah, but I absolutely adore they have I highly recommend you go check out Women Who Go merch and support it. I have a shirt, and my daughter has a matching shirt. She's 2 years old.
That's lovely. I'm so happy.
Gopher and a little baby gopher working together. So cool.
I'd like to ask, just to start, were there any surprises about that you learned about Go or about testing as you were writing this book? You talked about cataloging sort of your knowledge. Did anything surprise you in this process?
So, it's really difficult. First off, I thought it was going to be difficult. It was like 10 times more difficult to put the material together. And it was like maybe, how they say in engineering projects to double the time that you think it'll take. Like I would say like triple it. Wow, just because it was also my first book. So like maybe other people that have more experience would have more time, would have an easier time. But one of the things that I was really keen to do is to make sure that all of the Go concepts that you needed were explained as well. So a lot of the contents of the book isn't just about testing. It's about, for example, like what is a package and what does it mean to test a package? And then we talk about the testing package. So that was like one of the things that I was really keen to implement as well. Then we talk a little bit about dependency injection, but only as I continued to write things in the book, I realized the amount of frameworks and the amount of external libraries that I'll have to introduce. So there are like quite a few things in there. I've tried not to be opinionated because they each have their use, but to describe and like add, so to describe how to use it and give the readers enough to make their own choices was the thing that I was trying to do. So, we talk a lot about the Go ecosystem. I didn't realize how many open source projects we actually rely on a daily basis. And so that was one of the things that I thought was really cool. Like, this is what the Go ecosystem actually is. So it's just these really cool third-party tools. So, for example, like, I'd never used GoDog before, but I wanted to like mention it and explore it. And it's so cool the way it like generates your files. So what GoDog can do is you basically write a given when then like BDD test scenario, and then based on that it generates functions that will be called in that particular order. And I thought that this was really, really useful, and I'd never explored it before. So that was one thing that I learned a lot about as well. It was just a lot of learning for me as well. And the generics, I also included generics and fuzzing, and that was something that I was writing these parts probably like last year, so they were quite new. And that was like really cool to explore as well. There's a lot of learning from me.
So the book is about TDD, but you mentioned Cucumber, you mentioned GoDog.
Yeah.
This is obviously a hook for you to catch on. But I thought TDD was only for unit tests.
So we do talk about TDD in the beginning of the chapters. We demonstrate how to use it for unit tests, but then I kind of like leave that behind because, well, obviously you can't just write unit tests. And I talk a lot about like gathering requirements and understanding what your inputs and outputs are. And then you can kind of like translate this kind of workflow to writing your integration tests as well. I understand that that's not within the remit of TDD because you're not like writing and implementing at the same time. But I think it's really, really important that developers take ownership of not just unit tests, but the entire test suite. So that's why I was keen to include that as well.
Do QA engineers love you or hate you at Form 3? Or do you not employ QA engineers at all?
No, our engineers do all of the testing. So I think... I hope I'm pretty liked. Imagine if all my colleagues hate me.
How do you get over, I'll get it working. I'll test it later. This is the number one, thing you'll hear. It's wrapped up in tons of various different, I don't want to call it excuses, but, we need to ship the POC first because who cares? Yeah. Let me just get it working and I'll test it later. I'll deploy today, I'll test tomorrow, etc., etc. Or, even contrary to what you said, testing is done by the QA automation person on my team. I don't write tests.
Yeah. So it's so funny because I recently wrote a blog post and I ended it with a quote that said, "Let me just get this working and then I'll see how to test it." So it's exactly what you said. It was like, the whole mind, we have like a weird mind meld happening. But I think it's just because that's what the famous words of engineers are these. The way I feel about it is that, especially, so this was also one of the things that I was guilty of like much earlier on in my career. We're very like focused on finding solutions to things and being like, okay, let me just like write the source code and get this problem solved. But actually, until you've proven that it's robust, until you've proven that it's tested, it's not actually solved. So that would be like one thing to consider is like, until you've tested it and you know for sure, then you're not really finished. And if you're going to be like paranoid and you don't really know, you don't really remember like, I ran it, but I don't remember what the outputs were, then that the tests are there to like prove it to yourself as much as to others that it's working. Also remember that like quantity and quality are two different things. So, I can easily write you a whole bunch of code and it'll be like really buggy and we'll do this really quickly, but that doesn't mean that it's any good. So if you're thinking about like you becoming a better engineer and leveling up, honing your craft, then testing just has to be a part of it, because otherwise you'll never really know like how your solutions are behaving.
I'm curious who you envision this book primarily for. Is it for a seasoned Go developer who hasn't done TDD? Is it from somebody who does TDD but not in Go yet, or some sort of cross-section? Who's the audience this book is intended for?
The way I've written it is that it does include, like I told you, it does include the parts of Go that you'll need to understand for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I see it is like, if you're just starting out with Go, or like you've been writing it for a couple of years, then you could still use these refreshers to really like think about the fundamentals and reflect on what it really means when you're writing your tests. I do think that if you have a lot of experience with Go and you've been testing stuff and you're like, I don't know, a staff engineer, then this is probably not your read. But I mostly the way I see it is that I see more and more people converting from other backgrounds to Go. And in my opinion, the testing library, it's deceptively simple, or like it's so simple that it's hard to use. So, you've got like a handful of functions. You have to write your test into your assertions to fail it. In other languages, you do equals in order to pass it. There's no mocking, no inbuilt mocking. This was one of the things that really like was confusing to me, coming from Java. And in Java, we also have annotations for setup and tear down. I didn't know how to do any of that. So a lot of the things that I've written in the book were like niggles or problems that I had a hard time understanding in the beginning. And I hope that it'll like help people get going,
So one thing I think last week, Jonathan, we had 2 posts in 24 hours about senior Go developers looking what their next book is or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. One on your YouTube and one on Reddit.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing, you say this is not a book for staff engineers. I think it's a great book for a staff engineer to take to the team. You know what I mean? Let's do a session, guided session. Let's walk through the first through 2 or 3 chapters every week, and then sit for an hour and do a testing hackathon. It's great, right? Because you come into the session, you come out, and there's more coverage in the program, and more junior or like less experienced developers on the team, or perhaps experienced developers but not experienced in Go specifically, can use your book as a book club, as a way to leapfrog, the learning curve.
I'm particularly proud of the later chapters, which were, the more, everyone just like dreams to write about, like, the fundamentals are like, yeah, whatever, I covered those. But you want the more interesting stuff at the end. And I talk about, so the last 3 chapters, which I thought were going to be like the most difficult ones. They're concurrency, edge cases, so fuzzing and property-based testing, and the last one is generic, so that's chapter 11. And I rewrote a what's called table-driven testing to work with generic use cases. So I might actually take that and like write a blog post, because I thought that was really useful, and I didn't know how to do table-driven testing for generics, especially because if you have a generic function, you need to be able to test in different kind of types. Property-based testing was also difficult for me, because it seems like, from the way I've like played around with it, it seems like fuzzing has replaced it. So like property-based testing was something that you would do kind of like before that. But there's lots of, I would say, like open ends in the book for you to like understand the basics, and then you can go look more into it. So in that way, I think that's what makes it kind of easier to read, and it's something for everyone without becoming overly terse. Because let's be honest, like it could be quite boring.
I think it's very personal, but 300 pages on testing is a lot. So
that includes the index, by the way.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I don't know
so
what the
just
actual
for me
last page with text
to
was.
feel good, I'll compare it to this book, right? So this is in Hebrew, so you can't read it, but it's Marie
You're assuming
Kondo's
she
book.
can't read Hebrew. You don't know.
Actually, I assume, yeah.
She confirms she can't read Hebrew.
I can't.
So it's the Order Your House book from that person on Netflix, Marie Kondo. You know, the Kondo method, make your house. You have to say thank you to all the clothes and all that. So recently I read an article where she said, yeah, I wrote the book and it's true, but now that I have 3 kids, I can't keep, my house is also messy. So just for me and the listeners to feel better, are you happy with the coverage in your current company, in your current projects?
Yeah, so the way that things work at Form 3 is they don't rely so much on unit tests. They do a lot of integration testing and a lot of contract testing. So in that way, it's kind of like different to other places I've worked, but I understand why they do it because there's a lot of like event-driven architecture at Form 3. It's challenging to measure code coverage when it's like a whole bunch of other tests that are running outside Go test, perhaps. But I do think that, there's always a culture of quality, and I think that's the most important part. More than what your numbers are and what your percentages are, the culture of quality and refactoring and really like taking an interest in what the code is doing and how it's behaving is something that we should all strive to cultivate in our companies.
Totally. And easier to do with your book. By the way, we covered in the show in Go 120, there's coverage profiling in production. So even if it's not a Go test, you can get coverage. I think their example is they're running I don't know, some small program, but they're running it from shell and then getting the coverage results. And it looks great in the blog post. Trying to actually get it to work in integration tests and in production, at least for us, was a little more difficult, but it is possible. It's definitely possible.
I have 2, I think, related questions. The first one is, does this book make the case for TDD, or are you assuming that somebody who's bought this book has already decided they want to do TDD?
So I do explain the advantages and the disadvantages of TDD. Sometimes I do have to present the code before so that we can talk about like what's happening and what the complexities of it would be. But I do say like consider like as if this was the code, how would we go about this? But a lot of it is like, let's write tests that test outputs instead of implementation. And I think because of that, because you're forced to write the tests before the implementation, TDD is a great fit for that. So it will help you, this is my opinion, of course, it will help you write less brittle tests because you don't have any implementation to like what's called bias you into writing that test that way. So it does make the case for TDD, but at the same time, if you don't want to use it, you don't want to use it. Like I'm not just write really good tests. Yeah.
And that leads into my second part of I think the same question, and that is, you talked about fuzz testing and integration testing and end-to-end testing, which often are not considered part of the TDD approach. Would a better title for this book just be testing in Go, or do you think that test-driven development really is central to this book?
I think it is because of the kind of motivations that TDD has, which I also share, which is all about like thinking about requirements. I also talk about BDD as well. Right. So thinking about your requirements and really understanding what you're trying to build before you're trying to build it. So in that way, I thought, that the title is fitting. But yeah, I mean, that's up for debate, I suppose. The audience,
it's your book. You get to choose the title. Between you and the publisher, I guess.
Yeah, I've gotten some reviews already, and some people have really liked the fact that Go fundamentals were also introduced alongside the testing. But they said that they wish that I had made videos, which I now realize like would have been quite helpful to really like explain what's going on and demonstrate the process better. So I might do that in the future to really like show it a little bit better.
Well, I look forward to reading it myself, and I'll probably write my own review at some point. I tend to write reviews of books I read about Go, so I hope that's not too intimidating.
Thank you so much for buying it, by the way. Like, Jonathan bought it really, really early, and I was really touched. I even messaged my mom, someone bought my book.
and he has a copy before you.
Yeah, that's
fair even. You mentioned that you need to think about the requirements, and you mentioned BDD. One of the things, at least that in my concept, you have software, right? You want to build it. Why do you want to build it? At least in a company, right? Personally, for blogs and whatever, it's very personal. And side note here, y'all should go check out Adelina's blog. It's nice. It's personal. It has some fun posts.
Pink.
It's pink. I really like the post about nail art. The moment my nail stops messing, I have a messed up nail, I'm going to pick up some brush tips from you. So I highly recommend you check out the blog. But anyways, in a more corporate setting, the why and what of what you build is usually the product's responsibility. And I know that whenever I try to introduce BDD, Cucumber, given when then to my product team, I faced some difficulty because it feels like programming. It doesn't feel like doing product. Although in reality, what they write in tickets, user stories, Figma, mockups, PDR documents is basically just a worse version of the Cucumber files, right? Have you had an experience trying to introduce, BDD and these sorts of quality concepts outside of the R&D department into the product department or maybe the product designers?
So I have worked in companies where we did do everything together. So they would present the product roadmap and we would discuss exactly what was going on. And then you come away with a really thorough understanding of what you're trying to achieve and why. And I think that's so beneficial. However, it does kind of take forever. And the team, because, the team will want to discuss it and debate it, and people are already pivoted into implementation. So that's the thing that I think would be great to break this kind of when you're telling me we're going to create an endpoint and it's going to take these parameters and blah blah or whatever, I'm already imagining the code inside my head somewhere here. So I think that's the problem, is instead of trying to remove this bias and really understand what the product is doing. I do understand that. And I have seen product managers that have written the given when then format for me. And that has been really, really successful. But, we've just got a long way to go when it comes to really merging together the two worlds of product and engineering. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a non-answer, but, I have worked with it before and it's worked really well. But I understand why they feel like maybe they don't have the time to do it, but then engineering maybe can give them a hand, because from their perspective, it's not different requirements in different scenarios. They just design these behaviors or these things the user's gonna click here and then this is gonna happen. But I think if engineering wanted to get involved and write these scenarios, and you had a concerted company-wide effort, then it could work. And that's one of the things that I also said, this kind of quality mindset, especially in microservices architecture, has organizational factors into it that come into it as well. Yeah. Yes, there's no easy answer, unfortunately, but I've always been someone that was really keen to understand the product, so I think that's why this book was a good fit for me as well.
I've tried to get product people to write BDD, but it was never successful for me. I guess I just need a better approach.
Write it, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
One of the things we discuss often recently is how LLMs, ChatGPT, etc., impact writing Go. I've had two types of responses in my R&D groups. One of them was great. Finally, someone can write all my tests and I can just focus on writing code, finish writing the entire code base from start to finish, and then have the AI generate the test so no one will bother me. And the other camp, which is, all right, we can focus on writing tests and making sure and have the AI help us write the test first. and then the implementation will be easy, and I don't even need an AI to help me with that because I have a really, really good test suite. Or really good testing data that was generated. You know, how many times can you write person one, person first name, last name? Have you had any successful experiences utilizing, you know, Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever in writing tests or in writing code?
So I've tried to generate tests just to see what would come out of it. And for me, it was quite confusing because, you know, I feel like I don't really understand what was generated and why. And then it's hard for me to manipulate it. But I think, you know, so I would say like generate these things if you understand them, if you know what's going on, because when they do go wrong, like ChatGPT is not going to be like, oh, let me fix that for you. You have to fix it, right? So I think, especially for newcomers, I would caution them to use these tools sparingly until they really understand what they're doing. But I do think that, you know, our workflows will change with these kinds of tools, and I just don't have the answer to how. I think it would be better if we still like did the pairing kind of. So I still write some of the code and then some of the tests and then some of the code and some of the tests. And then ChatGPT just streamlines this for me as opposed to overtaking like one whole part of it and then me becoming lost. But maybe that's perhaps because it's my personal preference. Some people might not want to write tests at all, but at the end of the day, testing code is real code. So you want to make it the same quality and you want to have the same ownership and control of it. So that would just be the one thing that I would like try to remind people. If ChatGPT is not going to write the full implementation for you, I don't see why they would the whole test.
Yeah, that's been my fear too, that I would have ChatGPT write my tests and maybe not even understand the system or understand the problem. And, you know, if I don't trust ChatGPT to write my code without reading it myself, like I don't copy and paste from Stack Overflow. Why would I copy and paste from ChatGPT? At least not yet. Maybe eventually I'll trust it so much that I would do that. But right now I don't. So I feel like it would be more work to use ChatGPT to write my tests and then have to manually verify that it's actually doing the right thing.
So I'm on a different camp than y'all. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little more adventurous, but the way. First of all, AI is better for Go than other languages. We've discussed this in the show in the past, but it's tiny decisions, but smart ones, like formatting being standard. So all the tokens look the same and tabs instead of spaces. But the way I do it, and I don't know, it might come off as a bit irresponsible, is I write the comment above the test and the name. I really think a lot about the naming and the especially if the file already has a bunch of like table-driven tests, for example, they always have the same structure. And the generated output looks pretty good usually.
Are you talking about ChatGPT or Copilot?
I'm talking about Copilot specifically now.
Okay.
Because it also trains on your on the files you have open right now in VS Code and whatever. And they even have Copilot Labs have some features where you color some code and it's almost like Photoshop brushes. Explain it, chunk it, generate tests, but it only works for like JavaScript and TypeScript, not for Go yet.
So I tried ChatGPT 3 a few months ago, back in December, with Go, and it was terrible, absolutely terrible. Like worse than the images with 17 fingers. You know, it was really, really bad. But I recently retested the ChatGPT 4, and it impressed me. It made a couple small mistakes, but it did so much better with Go code.
So I guess the second edition of the book should have a few chapters to working with our alongside our AI companions.
Yeah,
just a QR code you can pass to ChatGPT, and it'll read the whole book for you and write your tests.
I can already imagine the editions. You know, your next edition is going to have a few chapters working alongside your AI companions, and then third edition is like respecting your AI overlords while they write.
The title of the book just gets shorter and shorter. Just
compressed.
Well, I think it would be good to hear your answers to our standard questions that we ask all of our guests on this show. I hope you're ready. The first one is, if somebody held a gun to your head and said, Adelina, you must remove some feature from Go, what would you take out?
Oh, God. There's not that many, is there?
That's true.
It's quite, you're like, well done. So let me think. So I would probably well, first off, I don't like what's happened. I think generics has a way to go before, I wouldn't say I would remove it, but like it's time to change it a little bit. I do think the manipulation of pointers, the explicit manipulation of pointers, is confusing to newcomers. So perhaps that could be something we could think about removing.
Okay.
Just because people, like, I know people that have like come from other backgrounds and they've tried to understand it, and it's just not gone well. So I think that's the number one thing that people are like, why is this? Why do we have pointers? Why are they explicit?
My C++ heart, I'm screaming here.
So I think it's
not everybody is coming down to go from like hyper interpreted runtime languages. Some of us have climbed up from assembly and C.
From the gutter. Yeah. No, maybe you have to cut that. But yeah, I do think pointers do get a lot of hate, and I think that would be my number one thing. I don't find them confusing myself, because I also learned C and C++. But I could understand if you come from Python, and it's already difficult to go strongly typed, and then all of a sudden you got these stars everywhere.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Like.
And from the other side, this is what you would remove, but what feature would you take from, what feature is missing? What feature would you take from other programming languages or libraries and put into Go?
I don't know what they're called, but in Java, we have Lambda functions that allow you to manipulate streams. So you have these streams, and then the Lambda functions can like map and collect, and they allow you to write some really nice like functional code. So you can sum it, and you can do less for looping.
You're the second guest who wants functional Go programming,
because we're tired of for loops.
Yeah. With generics, I think it will be happening before long. I mean, I'm sure, I know there are libraries to do some of that. I think, like you said earlier, we need to continue to improve upon generics, and I think this is something that's likely to come in some form or another before too long.
It'll probably be, some open source library in the upcoming year, and then offered proposal into the standard library like 10 years.
Maybe by Go 150.
Yeah.
But
my number one favorite thing, which I still think is so cool, are like Go interfaces that you can just like, they continue to be magic for me. And yeah, I don't think that can be improved at all, because they're brilliant.
I like interfaces too. I have to say, it took me a while to understand how to use them properly, coming from a traditional object-oriented background myself, which I'm sure you may have had similar experience. But once it sort of snaps in your head, it's just so nice.
I'm hoping to figure them out one day.
Yeah, one day.
All right, great, Adelina. Anything else we should mention?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be going to some conferences and speaking. I hope I'll see everyone at GopherCon UK, where I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the security aspects of testing. So we'll be working on a brand new talk for that.
Wow, exciting. You haven't done enough writing. You need to do some more writing. That's what you're saying.
No, this is for the talk. There's no more writing. But yeah, that's one of the things that I felt also could have been improved for the book. And it was more about like the security testing. So you can write security unit tests, and you can do all sorts of other cool stuff. And that's something I'm exploring right now. Yeah, so I'm going to be at a couple conferences this autumn. So I hope I'll see people there. But I've got nothing else to plug. Just follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter, whatever you like. And then hopefully I'll be able to give away some free books in the future as well.
Awesome.
Ah, that's cool.
Great. Well, we'll have links to your social media and GopherCon UK. We'll mention that on our show anyway when it's a little bit closer. It comes up in August.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's great. It's great to chat with you. I look forward to reading your book a little bit more than just the 2 pages I got to over my lunch.
It's okay.
Thanks for coming on and chatting about it. I hope that the book is well received. I hope you get some great reviews. And yeah, I guess we'll talk to you later.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, everyone.
Well, we want to once again thanks Adelina for coming on as a guest to talk about her book. She just told us after we stopped recording that she is already on our Slack channel. So that's Cup of Go Kebab, of course. So if you have questions for her after this interview, hop on over there. You can tag her directly, ask your questions. It was just great to have her on, and she's such a fun person, full of energy and a passion for testing.
Thanks, Adelina. And this wraps it up for this week's episode. Thanks a lot for listening. Remember to check out our new merch store, and you can check us out at cupago.dev, at the Gopher Slack, together with Adelina and the rest of our beautiful, beautiful audience, or email us at news@cupago.dev.
See you next week.
See you next week, everyone.